Hey there, my name is Alex, I am the Silver Mont. I'm hungry, but we're going to talk about some movies in this video. Don't worry, I doubt I'm going to make this a regular thing. I'm not doing any drastic changes to the channel, I just want to talk about some movies I saw lately because, well, I can. Just like this dog can, be barking non-stop at 5 AM in the morning. It's fantastic. We're gonna talk about Justice League's Snyder Cut and the Godzilla vs. King Kong film. Spoilers throughout, fair warning. Also, I won't be showing any footage from the films because, copyright stuff. But let's get into it. Justice League in particular was very interesting to me. The behind the scenes situation in particular. Justice League was originally being made by Zack Snyder, the director of 300, Watchmen. He then had to leave the project for personal reasons and was replaced by Joss Whedon, who then proceeded to retool and reshoot a lot of the movie. And Justice League's original release was back in January 2018. I did my 2017 wrap-up video wherein I talked about it. In summary, I said DC have rushed to this point. No solo movies for Aquaman or Flash and whatnot. I don't remember if Wonder Woman's movie came before or after Justice League. But whilst you don't need solo movies, you need what they represent. Introductions and character arcs for these heroes. I then remarked that it was obvious this film had at least an hour or more of cut footage, and oh boy, the Snyder Cut clocks in at 4 hours. I also pointed out how the villain was generic, didn't work as a standalone movie, and it had no identity. Comparing it to Man of Steel and Batman vs Superman, which, even though I don't really like those films very much, I could appreciate they had a visual style to them. They had a visual identity. Of course, I hated the tone of the original Justice League, with all the terrible jokes and quips, where every single character was quipping. Very Joss Whedon there. So, how does the new Justice League, or old Justice League that is new, fare in comparison? I gotta say, I enjoyed it. You see, it felt like a superhero movie. Something I've brought up time and time again with Marvel is how they never feel like superheroes. They feel like random humans who, some of them can then shoot lightning out of their eyes or something. The gravitas and the enormity of what is happening, even when the fate of the entire universe, or half of the universe, is at stake, falls flat. I genuinely don't think I can call any Marvel movie a superhero movie by my own definition of the term. On the one hand, we have Justice League that treats these characters as so much larger than life, almost like gods. On the other, we have the Sam Raimi Spider-Man film, or the Ang Lee Hulk film, wherein I feel like it is a comic book, a superhero film. With Justice League, there was a lot of superhero stuff. Every character felt important. Cyborg and Flash didn't have much to do in the old version. Cyborg was a non-character for the most part. Everyone has something to do this time. With the exception of Wonder Woman, everyone has a bit of growth to them as well. That's not to say I think Wonder Woman was underutilized though. If anything, she was used a bit too much, if only because having her narrate the dramatic flashback was not a great idea. When you are narrating an epic history moment, you have to think very carefully about who's gonna do it. I have nothing against Gal Gadot, but her voice ain't it. One funny tangent though, remember Lord of the Rings, with its epic history flashback, or whatever you want to call it, that begins the trilogy? They have Galadriel doing it, and it worked perfectly. You could have had Elrond, Gandalf, Bilbo, Saruman. Many of the characters, specifically because of their actors, could have narrated it and done an amazing job. In fact, I would have loved to see those characters do it as just an alternate version of the intro. For this particular scene in Justice League, well, they were rather limited. Personally, I think having Ares narrate it would have been cool, because that actor has a great speaking voice. But how can you fandangle him in to narrate it is another question entirely. Perhaps Ares was the one who made the thing that Wonder Woman was, reading and learning the history from, I don't know. Cyborg, though, is the most improved character this time. He's almost the protagonist of the film, you could say. He definitely has the most growth and the best arc, along with the Flash. Aquaman's is a lot more muted, but it makes sense because they knew he was getting his own movie shortly after this. In the original, I disliked Flash and Cyborg was just kind of there. He served no purpose beyond dropping exposition about the mother boxes, whereas this time, yeah, I kinda like his character and the arc he goes through, which comes to a nice culmination with that moment where he's like, I'm not broken. The bad guy is much improved too. This time he actually has some sort of motivation, and a more interesting goal beyond, I'm evil because I am evil. I like his design a lot more too. His bizarre, rippling silver armor is interesting. It's like if Silver Mont, the illiterate undead, fused with Kirk, Knight of Thorns. Very sexual and dangerous. Beyond story changes, there's of course the difference in style, from the square aspect ratio to the Snyder visual influence. Every action scene is improved, sometimes dramatically. There's more of a visual aesthetic going on. Even with the tremendous runtime, honestly, it never felt like it was dragging. There's so much going on, but it doesn't feel overwhelming. I'm genuinely impressed with the film. But I can see why it would be hard to release a 4-hour film in the theatres, because that's a long time to be sitting down in one place, you know? Feels like they would need interludes. The home viewing, though, that's where I'm a bit split. See, on the one hand, the aspect ratio didn't bother me. I enjoyed the feel it gave the film. On the other hand, not many people have square TVs these days. Unless they were viewing it in, I don't know, IMAX or projecting it at home, the black bars and all that, they are there. Again, it's not a huge problem, it's just a slightly odd choice. If you know you're going to be doing a home release, home streaming platforms and all that, you also know almost everyone has a widescreen TV. Having it released to watch at home was good because I could pause, I could take breaks and so on. Actually, I must confess, I watched 30 minutes or so, then I went to sleep, and I watched the rest the next day with a few breaks and pauses here and there. But as I said, I'm genuinely impressed with how they managed to pull this off. I'm not a huge fan of comic books and superheroes, but it kept my interest the entire time, and I consider this quite a feat, if not an amazing movie. In some ways, it reminds me of Cloud Atlas, a film that I wouldn't say is, mind-blowingly good, but it's an extremely interesting and unique project. It's something I think everyone should check out, and I think I can say the same for this. If I were to suggest people some superhero films, it would be the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy and Justice League. Maybe with Man of Steel and Batman vs Superman as well, if they didn't know who Superman was. For backstory. Finally, Blade. Not because I consider it a great superhero movie, just because it's awesome and Blade is painfully cool. It is a hard movie to rate, Justice League. There's definitely stuff to nitpick, the newly shot ending nightmare scene was bizarre. Darkseid was a little baffling. I know people saying, oh, he's so one-dimensional, but again, Darkseid wasn't the villain of this movie. This would be like complaining Thanos isn't fleshed out prior to Infinity War and all that. I don't mind that he's not fleshed out at the moment. He's just there in the background as foreshadowing, so it's fine. But did he forget about Earth? Like Danny forgot about the Iron Fleet? The reasoning there escaped me, and I know a lot of people were confused by that, so it's definitely something that they could have clarified better. Did Darkseid know the anti-life equation was there? Did he forget because he was wounded and it had been so long? What happened there? Some clarification would be needed. If they're going to make Justice League 2 Infinity Darkseid or something, they need to have a scene where it's, clarified what exactly happened there, in my opinion. It doesn't need to be a long scene, but hey, there you go. Overall though, the pros outweighed the negatives and I enjoyed the film. It also goes to show what a talent vacuum Joss Whedon is. Assuming he's the one to blame for writing awful jokes, having no idea how to light, frame, or in general shoot a dramatic scene or an action scene. He can't do a superhero entrance, he can't do action. Honestly, I'm not sure what he can do. I've been saying it since Avengers came out in 2012, I don't understand his talents, compared with, say, Christopher Nolan or Snyder. I'm not saying they are the best filmmakers ever, but I understand their strengths and weaknesses. With Joss Whedon, he doesn't seem to do anything good, in my opinion. That about wraps it up for Snyder League, though. If you have any remote interest in superheroes or comic book movies, check it out if you have 4 hours to kill. But let's move on to Godzilla versus King Kong. King Kong versus Godzilla, whatever it's called. Because that came out not long after the Snyder stuff, and I actually just watched it yesterday. At time of recording, of course. By the time I release this, it's probably going to be out for about, I don't know, a week or something. So, I might as well talk about both. Not that they have anything to do with each other, they're just two movies that came out close together. Disclaimer, I'm not a huge Kong fan or a huge Godzilla fan. I didn't enjoy Godzilla's reboot. I kind of feel like I know what they were going for, but it fell flat. It felt like Michael Bay Transformers. Watch military men waddle around. Now and then the actual stuff you're interested in, robots or giant dinosaurs, show up. The King of the Monsters sequel was a marked improvement, but still not something I was engrossed by. I liked seeing Mothra there. I think Mothra is cool. Kong Skull Island was a film, and now here we are. Kong has become massive. He can shove a tree into Godzilla's face. In the long-awaited showdown, it's been, 40, 50 years since the last time they bashed each other? But shove a tree into his mouth, he did. Well, sort of. He shoved the handle of his axe in there at one point. The movie as a whole felt more like a Skull Island sequel, in that it was more Kong than Zilla. I would say he definitely had more screen time, not that I counted. The premise of the film was, again, spoiler warning and all that, Kong has been kept isolated in a containment zone in Skull Island. He's rapidly growing too large for it, so the debate is, where on earth do we put this big old monkey? A solution arises, dump him in the hollow earth. Only turns out that's more of a secondary motive, as not at all suspicious company Apex seeks an incredibly potent form of energy that only exists in the hollow earth, and they think Kong will lead them right to it. They want it real bad, you see. But then Godzilla shows up because he really hates rivals. He wants to be king of the monsters. Plot is light, as you might hope, in a movie about a giant lizard fighting a giant ape. As with the last two films, the weakest part of the film is definitely the human element. Just about every human in these movies turns out to be completely insane, with no understanding of logic, human emotions, empathy, consequences, just about anything. The little girl from the last movie returns, for no reason other than I can assume she signed a multi-picture contract, same with her father. You could cut them out of the movie completely, nothing would change. They serve no role, they have no growth or development as characters, they are just there to do plot stuff. The humans brilliantly decide that moving King Kong on a boat halfway across the world is the best course of action, whilst trying to avoid a giant aquatic titan that is unstoppable in the water. They even try shooting him with missiles when he shows up, as if that would do something. After that surprisingly doesn't work, even though they try to avoid Godzilla's shipping lanes or something, they remember that aircrafts exist, and they dragged King Kong with helicopters the rest of the way. Why didn't they fly him from the get-go? Well, I guess to quote a very popular series of YouTube videos, whoopsie. If we ignore the human stuff, how's the monster-on-monster action? It's alright. Godzilla and Kong fight twice in the movie. There's a third battle against a third party, which was not much of a surprise. It was very obvious that this film would follow a similar structure to Batman vs Superman, only in this case it's Mechagodzilla who pops up and beats the living daylights out of Godzilla before Kong intervenes and they, tag team him. There's also a brief Godzilla solo action sequence at the start, and a brief battle between Kong and some gross flying snake dragon things. The issue with this film is that I basically saw the entire film from watching the trailer. I know it might sound a little odd, but the trailer was essentially the entire film condensed into 2 minutes. Isn't that what a trailer should be? You cry. Well, not in my opinion. It's not a huge problem by any means, there just wasn't much for the movie. Nothing was really bleh. I'd like to compare it to Pacific Rim, which is another similar movie wherein plot's irrelevant for the most part. It had more action scenes and better action scenes. There's the opening action scene, the big middle action scene, and then the ending action scene, right? With a few mini things sprinkled in sporadically here and there. Like, you see Striker, Eureka, or whatever it was called, fighting on the TV, stuff like that. Kong Kong missed that. It only really had 2 proper action scenes, and I think it needed a third. The action scenes were certainly more bombastic than they had been in the past, but we can go further. Also, what happened to all the other Titans? Like, are they just gone now, or just chilling? I don't know. We should go further. We can go further. Interesting aside though, the film's director, Adam Wingard, I think, he did another movie I enjoy a lot called The Guest. It came out, I don't know, 2014? I would definitely suggest checking that one out, it's good. Overall, it was an entertaining movie. I definitely found myself siding more with Kong because he's a bit of an underdog, he's a big monkey. Godzilla is a nigh indestructible. Well, he's kind of like Superman, you know? It's fun to watch Superman tear stuff up, but I'm not gonna really cheer for him when he's fighting someone who's a lot weaker. It'll be interesting to see where the Monsterverse goes from here, though. What other monsters they get from Toho, I guess. Until next time, though, you guys take care. Ciao.